It says on. There we go. Oh, cow. All right. Why is this thing going? There we go. Again, thank you all for coming. This is Attack Team Automation Tool, taking on the entire rebellion with just a few stormtroopers. I am Enigma. I'm a hacker, Lockpick Village guy, BSidesSTL co-founder, an Irongeek impersonator, proudly non-rockstar, and I'm a cert haver. So the impetus for this tool came from several things. Having vulnerability reports that are missing information like port data was one of them, being on engagements with large scopes, small squads, and tight deadlines. Also the need to use industry standard tools and features that I wish existed in these tools but that didn't. The need to increase efficiency and repeatability, and the desire to automate as much as possible, as well as newbies. So this tool gives you the ability to write a really simple process flow document that you can provide to somebody who may be a more junior tester, and they'll be able to accomplish quite a lot in a relatively short period of time. It doesn't require them to have the syntax knowledge of all the various tools that are used in an ordinary pen test. The substance of the tool comes from simplicity being the best design choice perspective. And with that, ATAT is essentially just well-known industry standard tools given ergonomic handles and autopilot functions. Here are a list of some of the tools that are supported presently, and it's still under active development. A couple of things that I'm working on are fully automating privilege escalation for Windows OS X and Linux, and I'm also working on support for proof of concept code attacks. The origin of the tool came from a Metasploit automation script that I found on GitHub that's called EasySploit by somebody named Randomize. And much the same way that Barbecue SQL uses a social engineering toolkit's menu structure, ATAT uses a modified version of the EasySploit menu structure. Every existing option that's been retained over an ATAT has either been completely rewritten from the ground up or enhanced significantly, except for two shortcut options that I'll touch on later. And there are a ton of new features in this tool. One of which is the payloads feature, which allows you to create every conceivable Metasploit payload that is available, and these are great for gigs where AV evasion isn't an issue, and it supports all operating systems, mobile or otherwise, so that's pretty nice, as well as some antivirus evasion techniques that I have in the works but are not yet released. The main feature of this tool, where it originated, was to give multi-target exploitation, just so I could more quickly and easily hit a large number of targets that have the same vulnerability that were reported. And what this does is it basically gives you rhost functionality for exploit modules. The main feature gives you support for exploit modules that only require common options. So if you only need lhost, lport, rhost, and rport and payload as required options to be set, then the initial feature in this menu will support your module. This limitation is overcome by creating separate menu items for the various unique exploit module types, two of which are demonstrated here. These are two separate menu items condensed into one slide. There's an option for multi-target struts and multi-target Tomcat attacks. And again, this is giving you rhost functionality for Apache struts modules and for Tomcat modules, and these are the parameters that are supported by those features respectively. I support the Java JMX exploit module, as well as the Java RMI exploit module. Here is a quick demonstration of the payload creation feature. We open up the payloads menu, go to custom, gives you the types available. You put in your domain or your IP. You can just put ETH0, WLAN0, whatever interface you're using. That's awesome. Okay. So, let's start that over. I'll just watch it with you guys. So if we open the payloads menu, go to the custom option, put in your domain or your IP. Like I said, you can put in your interface and it'll get the IP for you. Select your L port, the type from the list above, as well as the shell type that you want, and bind or reverse, and then staged or stageless, and select your protocol. And you can also use the find port option, which helps in egress filtering evasion. That's going to create your payload, echo some information about it to the screen. And then it gives you the path to the payload, path to your handler file, and then the command that you're going to use to start the handler file. The tool really takes nothing for granted. Also gives you a quick simple HTTP server command for hosting the tool if you should choose to deliver it to your victim in that manner. The multi-target SNMP enumeration feature, this is something that was built in for the sake of simplicity, not necessity. Our hosts is already supported by SNMP, but since I already have a multi-target list of all the targets that I'm working on, this is just easier for me to continue in my workflow and just to build it into the menu-driven structure so that I don't have to go out of band in a separate tab, open up MSF console, and then manually type everything in. The multi-target load balance detection feature, this does exactly what it says on the tin. It runs load balance detection against all the targets in your target file, and it echoes all of the results to the screen, as well as capturing them in a log file in your ATAT directory. So we go to auxiliary and scanning, open up load balance detection. It runs straight away from all the targets that are in your target list. This is going through Google. I'm going to fast forward through some of this. It's kind of dull. It detects the type of load balancing being done, which in this case is DNS. Goes to the next target on the list. Finds Akamai, Ghost, and CloudFront. And we see that is an Amazon host using HTTP server and diff methods for load balancing. The multi-target mass scan of all TCP ports feature, again, does exactly what it says on the tin. This scans all TCP ports from 0 to 65535 on all of the targets in your target list. And it's rate limited sufficiently to prevent you from denial of servicing your network when you run it while still going pretty quick. It averages about a minute or so per target, and it echoes, again, all the results to the screen and captures them in a log file. It also supports pause and resume of scans, so if you have a rather large scan, you can pause that without any issues and come back to where you left off. Again, this goes to auxiliary and scanning, and then the mass scan feature, and then just run it. Found 2 open ports on the initial. Fast forward through a lot of this, it's just scanning. And we found 2 open ports on the second target. The nice feature here is that this automatically feeds the SSL scan feature. So it takes all of the targets in your target list and it finds, takes all of the open ports that are found for each target and it compiles them into a list that it feeds into the SSL scan feature, which you see here. This has been such a huge time saver for me. Going through all the targets that you have and then finding all of the open ports for each target and manually compiling those lists is tedious and it takes up a lot of time. This doing it automatically has been a huge benefit to me personally. This again echoes all of the results to the screen, which is nice because SSL scan gives you that really nice color coded. I don't know if any of you guys use SSL scan, but the results are really nice and easy to read at a glance. They're all color coded. So you retain all of that with the tool, as well as it keeping all of that in a log file in your ATAT directory. It also further sorts and categorizes those findings into separate text files for quick finding of SSLv2 or Heartbleed or the certs that you found, expired certs, or what have you. These next 2 features are kind of different. So this is a multi-port exploit. This launches one exploit at one target across multiple ports. Why would anybody want to do this, you might ask? Well, if you remember at the beginning when I mentioned the vulnerability reports missing port data on them, if you have reports of a vulnerability on a target, it's not running on a standard port, banner grabbing, service identification seems to be failing, you're not able to accurately find that out. This is giving you our ports functionality for an exploit module so that you're able to fire that across all the ports. Not always the wisest idea, admittedly, which is why this is also a backup, multi-port auxiliary. So if you have the option to launch an auxiliary module against your target across a number of ports because it's a bit safer, then, you know, you've got that option. Both of these features are things that hopefully none of you ever find yourself in need of, but if you do, there's really nothing else that's going to do. The listeners feature just simply and easily creates Metasploit listeners of all types available. It also has some intelligent post-X built in, so it intelligently identifies the platform for each session that you get in, and then runs an applicable array of post-X modules for that target, for each of the targets, because it'll run in succession every session that you have available at the time. The persistence module is built around the Durandal backdoor builder by Skysploit. This was a tool that was initially released in the Simple Ducky tool, which is a payload creator for the USB rubber duck. It relied on the old Ming W32 compiler, so that compiler is not available on current systems, so it didn't work anymore. I updated that with the newer MingW compiler for current systems, and it creates persistent encrypted daemonizer reverse shells and bind shells for Windows, Linux, and BSD, as well as an Android interpreter APK builder on HTTPS protocol. It is encrypted, persistent, and very stable. I've had quite a bit of success with the Android interpreter. The Empire and Death Star features gives you the option to launch PowerShell Empire and the REST API. It also gives you the option to launch Death Star, the domain admin automation tool. You can admin the REST API, create, kill, and use listeners, stagers, agents. I support 21 out of the 31 available stagers, and I'm working on automated PostX for Windows, Linux, and OS X. It is functional, but it's not quite as polished as I'd like it to be. Sorry, I'm getting kind of out of order here. Here's your SSL scan. So here's the really nice color-coded features. Not features, results, sorry. And further breaks down into the various categories. So you can see SSLv2 or your weak ciphers, RC4, or what have you. Moving on, there's a dependency checker. So the dependency checker just installs and configures PowerShell Empire, Death Star, and a various array of different tools that AT-AT needs to do its jobs. And the remaining items that I didn't change were option 3 and 5, that's the MSF console and Armitage launchers. They took very minor fixes to make them work, and they're not something that I use personally, but it's something that could be useful, so I left it in. There we go. I don't know how well this is going to fit on here. Okay. So if we start our listener, select our port, and then the payload. Those are the only two options you need to set when creating a listener, and AT-AT does the rest. We will then go back to the main menu and multi-target exploit, and then select the Java RMI option. think I'm 25. And then your L port. This is just the attacker server port. And okay, the R port, so the service, where the service is running on your targets. And then payload. Sorry. I didn't practice doing this with the TV behind me and to the side. Yeah. Thank you. So again, this will run through all the targets in your target list and attempt to exploit them. There's session 1. And session 2. So we drop to the prompt. You notice this gives you the command to run for your automated PostX. And this will run through all of your sessions sequentially. Here's all the loot coming in. See, we're on session 2 now. These are all your loot files. So I'm going to open up and we'll go through them as soon as they all come in. Looks like these are still from session 1, so it hasn't even hit session 2 yet. Or at least they haven't completed. The jobs have been started as background jobs and they're running. It's just we haven't gotten the results yet. Okay, first one's done. The second is starting. There we go. Now they're flying in. Cool. So we've got Etsy Shadow, we've got password hashes and salts. It grabs all of the host keys, private keys. There's users, I think that's Etsy password, if I can tell from this 175-degree angle. Host, private keys. That's a banner. Pretty sure that's a host key. I can't tell from here. Yeah, that's a host key, private key, bunch of system information, a bunch of host keys, private keys, system info. There's where servers are running, networking information. There's netstat data, more private keys. IP tables, routing table information, pretty much anything and everything that you could get off of the machine, this will grab automatically for you. Thank you. There's IP tables data. And we're into the second session now, so some of this is duplicate because they're both identical machines. Again, more host keys. So all of that's the same stuff. So that is That's over 70 pieces of loot in, a minute from 2 separate machines. All of the really good, really useful stuff. So now what I'll do, let's exit this out. Yeah, it was. Okay. I'll look at the persistence method. Just to show you guys that the Windows Durandal backdoor reverse shell builder, we just put in whatever your, let me pull up the folder where they're dropped. Okay, so put in your, L port, whatever it is, or L host, your L port, and then whatever the shared secret is for the encrypted connection. It'll automatically create your backdoor. It's going to drop 2 files in your HTML directory, automatically starts Apache for you to serve them, and automatically starts your listener for you. Then drops to some instructions. So while this backdoor is persistent and self-healing, it does not have reboot persistence. So once the machine goes down, it will not auto-start. There's 2 options to get around this. These commands here will run through deploying it on the victim machine, hiding it, and then running it with a nominally obfuscated ps-exec, which is what this is here. So it runs your backdoor with a Microsoft signed binary, which is really useful in some environments, and then runs a scheduled task to run that on login, so you get your connection back after a reboot when somebody logs in. There's also an option to just generate a batch file that you can push and run with this option right here, and these instructions give you just quick and simple for how to push that and run it through an interpreter session. With that, whoops, let's go back over here. Here's the PowerShell Empire and Death Star. We just go to Empire and Death Star options. Option 1 launches PowerShell Empire and the REST API. I had an agent, our listener already run that I changed manually the name on, so I'm renaming that back to Death Star, which is what Death Star automatically does for you. You're not going to have to do any of this. This is just something that I did because of some other work that I was doing prior. So I'll fast forward through some of that. We set the name back. Go to New Tab, relaunch ATAT, and then select Empire and Death Star, and then Option 2 to launch Death Star. And since I already have an agent, you'll see the recon starts automatically. Well, one of the nice features of that is you can use Death Star in a pinch until the privilege escalation features are done. Death Star, as a part of its processes, will automatically try to privilege escalate the clients. And you see here from high integrity 0 in PSE, that means it's a non-admin shell, up to 1, so it automatically went through that. This is something it just does automatically, so it's something you can use as a workaround to escalate privileges on your agents until that feature has been fully fleshed out and released. Also, the stager creation from PowerShell Empire, the Empire and Death Star option, menu option rather. Select option 8. You'll notice there are 3 separate menu options here. Each of the stager types have different post-processing that required it to be broken out into separate menu options. Each of them tells you which one they support, though. So select that option, put in your IP, and port for the PowerShell API. And enter in your listener name, and then here's the list that this particular menu option supports. So select your desired stager, punch it in, and you get this base64 encoded blob. The API works with JSON requests, so AT-AT pulls out this output and then further base64 decodes it and drops it into the stager launcher text file that you see right here mentioned in this top line. I'll open that up and show that to you. And this is the text that you'll actually put in the batch file. In this case, it's a batch file launcher on the victim machine. Here's where you can get the tool. I initially created it to support the old Ming W32 compiler, and I kept that up. I kept both of them up for a while. It's no longer maintained, so some of the newer features don't exist there. But there's the GitHub links for both of them. And here's my contact information. That's pretty much all I have. So you guys have any questions? Yep. And those are L's. The bars on either side are L's. Everybody good? Yep. Any questions about it? All right, that's all I got.